Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to do my March reading roundup, where I basically give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour through my March reading. March was actually a really fantastic month, partially inspired by the fact that I was the co-host for Herstory-a-thon, which you'll have heard me mention many times, but is the readathon that I co-host with Brittany over at Literally Smitten, where we basically challenge ourselves to read as many fantastic books, both history and historical fiction, to do with women of the past, so women who actually existed in history. We have their stories, we can read about them, and it's always such a fantastic month for the 2 years that we've been doing it. And that really spurred me on to read as much as possible, and I actually ended up reading 15 books in March. Not all of them were Herstory-a-thon related, but I think that really just kind of lit a fire into me. It made me really engaged and inspired to read. As always with these reading roundups, I don't do in-depth thoughts about these books. I am just kind of like giving you a tour of that reading, with the intention being that I would do more in-depth videos in the future. But the books that I read this month were Sex and the City of Ladies, Rewriting History with Cleopatra, Lucrezia Borgia and Catherine the Great by Lisa Hilton, Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, Joan by Catherine J. Chen, Elizabeth of York, The Last White Rose by Alison Weir, Glasstown by Isabel Greenberg, Women vs Hollywood by Helen O'Hara. This was the group pick for Herstory-a-thon this year. Why She Wrote, A Graphic History of the Lives, Inspiration and Influence Behind the Pens of Classic Women Writers by Lauren Burke and Hannah K. Chapman, illustrated by Kaylee Bales. Letters of Great Women, Extraordinary Correspondence from History's Remarkable Women, edited by Lucinda Hawksley. The Once and Future Sex, Going Medieval on Women's Roles in Society by Eleanor Janega. Lady Macbethad by Isabel Schuler. No Life for a Lady by Hannah Dolby. The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Hidden Figures by Margot Shetterly. And finally, When I Dare to Be Powerful, Collecting Essays by Audre Lorde. So as you see, quite a mix of books that I read this month. There were no books here that were rereads, things that I'd read previously, but I did have actually 2 DNFs this month, both of which were Herstory-a-thon books, the first being Unquiet Women by Max Adams. I just really could not get into the writing style of this, and at times I actually found it a little bit patronising. So I very quickly realised that the writing style of this wasn't for me, even though as a book, as a design, it is beautiful. It held such promise, but I have been swayed by a pretty book cover before. And then also The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont, which is historical fiction looking at the disappearance of Agatha Christie. This is one that I actually got a good chunk of the way into. I think I got around about halfway through, but I realised that this book just wasn't offering me what I wanted, which is not necessarily the fault of the book, but I just wasn't really finding myself very compelled by it. So both of these, it was unfortunate that I just didn't get on with them, but it meant that I was able to much quicker get onto things that I did enjoy. In terms of my star rating breakdown, I had some lows in this month, but then I did read one of my favourite books of the year. I had one at 2.5 star, which was Glasstown, one at 2.75, which was No Life for a Lady, 2 books that I rated 3 star, those being When I Dare to Be Powerful and Why She Wrote, 2 books I rated 3.25 star, that being Sex and the City of Ladies and Hidden Figures, 1 book at 3.5 stars, which was The X Talk. Actually, I tell a lie, there was another book that was 3.5, and that was Letters of Great Women. 3 books I rated 4 stars, those being Spoiler Alert, Joan and The Once and Future Sex. 1 book got 4.25 stars from me, and that was Lady Macbethad. 1 book got 4.5, which was Women vs Hollywood. And then my favourite book of the month, which I ended up rating 4.75, was Elizabeth of York, The Last White Rose. So a pretty great month for me. In terms of my fiction to non-fiction breakdown, I ended up reading 7 books that were fiction, but actually 8 books that were classed as non-fiction, which is very good for me. Obviously, I think with it being Herstory-a-thon, that really helped me push up my non-fiction reading numbers. In terms of a genre breakdown, I read 3 books that were strictly history non-fiction, though a lot of the books that I read this month could be classed as history non-fiction, but maybe have some other genre sprinkled in. 5 books were historical fiction, 2 romance, 1 graphic novel, 1 book which was part a history and part graphic novel, or it had graphic elements woven into it, 1 letter collection, 1 children's book, and 1 essay collection. So a nice little mix there. The main reason that I was doing these roundup videos was because I want to do more individual book reviews and have more chance and scope to talk about the books that I'm reading in depth, because I did read so many books. I am planning on doing all of my Herstory-a-thon books in 1 dedicated video, which will feel very much like a wrap-up, I'm not gonna lie to you. In terms of where that leaves some of my other books that I read that weren't strictly Herstory-a-thon, I read 2 romance books this month, The X Talk and Spoiler Alert, and I think what I'm planning on doing with this is very similar to the other romance books that I've read this year. I think I'm going to collect them into another installment in my 3 romance reads series, or what I am now turning into a series. In April, I have already read 1 other romance book, book, so that will be my 3 books. The only other book from my list that wasn't history-a-thon and wasn't romance was No Life for a Lady, though you could argue there is a little bit of a romance in here, but it's not the entire plot. And I don't know what I'm doing about this one, to be honest, because it's one that I didn't have the best time with, and it's not that that would deter me from doing a video on it, but I feel like my thoughts on this were so meh that they're just not very interesting. But yeah, I'll have a think about this one because, yeah, conflicting thoughts. The penultimate point on any of these roundups is to look at how my TBR is going, because it is an ongoing goal of mine to make sure that I'm whittling down my TBR. Obviously, because of the fact that it was March, it is my birthday month, I did buy books and I did receive books. So I was quite conscious that my TBR number might go up. But also during March, I actually did a little bit of unhauling from my TBR. For one reason, because I was looking at some of these unread books and thinking, am I actually going to get around to reading them? Probably not. Also because my parents may be moving very soon, and so I wanted to have a little quick unhaul of some of my unread books at home, because otherwise they're just going to take up space and weight that they don't deserve. With all that in mind, I started March the 1st with 64 books on my TBR. I ended up unhauling or taking off 10 books. I read 15 books from my existing TBR, DNF 2, and I bought or received 20 books, one of which was a book that I'd already read. I did do a lot of book buying in March, I can't lie. After all of that has left me with an overall TBR number for the 1st of April of 57 books. So I have gone down remarkably by 7 books this month. Let's hope I can keep that going. The last point for this reading roundup is to talk about books that I'm currently reading. We are already a week into April, so I have finished off quite a few books in that time, but at the time of filming I can tell you that I'm currently reading Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the last of Taylor Jenkins Reid's novels that I am still yet to finish. I am very much hoping that once I read these I could do maybe like an author look back, like retrospective, thoughts about each of the books, my personal rankings kind of video. We'll see how we go. I'm actually really enjoying this so far, which I don't know what I thought I was going to think of this, because so far I feel like I've seen kind of mixed reception to this, but I'm having a good time with this. Imminently on my to be read pile is The Secrets of Heartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden. Very much looking forward to this, but I want to carve out a good amount of time to be able to sit down with it. But yes, those are all of the different things I wanted to get through in this reading roundup. Do let me know if you have read any of the books that I've spoken about this month. Alternatively, let me know any recommendations of any books that you read in March that you really enjoyed. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.